Track Wrestling here in Daytona Beach, Florida at the NWCA convention with Titan Mercury Wrestling Club co-founder, executive director Andy Barth, one of the keynote speakers here this week in Daytona. Let's start there, Andy. What were some of the messages you wanted to get across to college coaches, high school coaches that are here this weekend?
So I talked about a few things. One, I wanted to just communicate to them that I did want to communicate that we recognize that just how challenging and how demanding their roles are, and that I think that we've had a lot of great success in USA Wrestling here this past year, and that they're part of the reason for the momentum behind that success. So I did want to kind of convey that thanks, but I wanted to say that there's more that we can be doing. Despite the fact that we've had an incredibly successful period, there's still not the level of recognition and appreciation. There's not the growth in audience and demand for viewership in wrestling that we ought to have, and that we really have a great opportunity today. I think within a relatively short period of time, just these last few years, I think the opportunities for digital media have really changed the whole landscape. We can really now we don't have to look for how to get our message out on TV or how to get covered in the print media. We can really take control of it ourselves, but each coach needs to spend at least some little additional portion of their time with a focused strategy, a focused marketing, public relations, digital media presence. And it's something that they need to work on with all their wrestlers in conjunction with their university's public relations staff. And they need to make sure that it's an active and it's a assertive approach as opposed to a passive approach. They have an opportunity to really build their own network, their own community through their wrestlers, through their alumni, and they need to really sort of just take the time to think through that strategy and approach it in a very positive way. I also wanted them to think that each and every one of them is responsible for having or the thought process that goes into trying to grow our sport, trying to increase our sport, increase our audience, increase our community, increase everything that goes into it. There's been a lot of I think there's been a lot of missed opportunities over the years, and so others have come in and filled that space, filled that void. I think look at the success of MMA and UFC. They should be commended for that, but I think that exists in part because we haven't filled that space. Look at how successful CrossFit's becoming. These are remarkable young people, tremendous athletes, tremendous work ethic, but they're I don't know that watching a CrossFit competition is that much different from a wrestling practice. So I think that we can expand, but we need to really take it upon ourselves. Everybody feels needs to feel a responsibility to try to grow our sport and to try to communicate about the incredible things that are happening in wrestling.
When you started Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, what was the vision you had with that? Why did you? What led you to launching that club?
Yeah, it's always nice to say, oh, you had some grand vision, but I'll be honest, it didn't really start that way. I wanted to start a club in Southern California that could promote really a youth development, an elite youth development effort in Southern California. And it just so happened around that same time that I was doing that my good friend Jim Ravanack, that he was sort of rolling up some of his support of the Gator Club. And so I talked to Jim and I said, Jim, I could probably help. I have really the vehicle that can help some of these wrestlers that are going to continue, but that you can't keep supporting through Titan Mercury, so we can pick up some of those wrestlers and help them with their tournament support. And it just kind of grew from there. My good friend Wayne Boyd was very helpful in working in that regard, and helping support and build relationships with a lot of the college coaches. And so, the overall goal was we just wanted to try to find a way to help the United States, put more U.S. athletes, on the world and the Olympic podiums. How we go about creating that support and helping the athletes has really taken on a much greater effort than I ever would have imagined.
The next project, American Wrestling League.
Right.
You're getting that off the ground. Professional leagues haven't been able to stick yet in this sport. What will make this one different? What can make it successful?
Yeah.
What can make it sustainable long term?
So I think one of the important things is the degree of cooperation and involvement we have from the wrestlers. You have to have the top wrestlers involved. That's who people want to see. People want to see they want to see the matches that they didn't see amongst the top 3 or 4 guys. They want to see rematches of those guys to a point. They want to see the number one at this weight wrestle the number one at that weight, where they're right next to each other. They want to see the people that they know, and so you have to have the top wrestlers involved, and we have that. We have a lot of the very top guys in the country want to be a part of this, want to do this. I think they understand that it needs to begin at a reasonable level, that we have to have we have to be able to sustainably and repeatably produce events that turn a profit. Now, when I say that, I'll point out, we're not looking to benefit personally financially. I really just want, but I want the costs covered. I want the costs covered, and the costs will include, a fee for the wrestlers. It'd be $2,500 to compete, and then another $5,000 for the winner. I think from the profits, we want to be able to put aside money to support the continual and eventual development of a league, where it would be a dual meet format competition, 4 to 6 teams. But from some other portion, if we have a surplus, we totally want to be sharing that with the wrestlers as well. So I think we are. It's something that's really coming forward from the ground up. The best wrestlers in the country want to be involved. They actually want to be coaches, managers, owners of teams, and I think that so therefore they want to see it succeed. So I think that creates sort of a combined shared economics that will allow us a fighting chance.
The first one in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, was scheduled for August, being pushed back.
Right. Right.
What made pushing it back the right move?
I think it's really important that we have cooperation support from all the key bodies of wrestling, and I think we thought when we looked at scheduling that ahead of time, we thought that 2 months after Final X, 2 months before the Worlds, was going to be fine. As we got closer, there was a I think there's just a feeling that created too much risk for our world team. And then so we decided, we want to work with the different constituencies of wrestling. We don't want to work against them. This is something that we really see. We really see it being, a piece of the mosaic, a piece of the puzzle. The puzzle being, how do you create a livelihood out of wrestling for our wrestlers? This will not solve the whole picture, but it can be an important piece of that. But it can only be an important piece if everybody is kind of on board with it. And that'll be the challenge for us, is that finding the points in the calendar where you can hold events, where and in the future, if we're able to produce events that are commercially successful, and then we can transition to kind of a league with a dual meet competition format, then that will be the biggest challenge. I think will always be how do you find it in the calendar, that so it doesn't conflict with our world championship preparation, it doesn't conflict with the wrestlers as they are ramping up for U.S. Open and World Team Trials. How do you find those openings, in the calendar? I think it looks, the fall tends to look best, but this year it was unusual. The World Championships were set for October. If it had been like the year before, where the World Championships were in August or in September, we would have had a nice wide opening right around then. We're hoping to find a date in November, but we haven't settled on that yet.
I want to ask you this too. You've been incredibly generous toward giving back to the sport of wrestling. Why so? What has made you want to give back to wrestling the way you have?
Yeah. So I think that wrestling had a tremendously positive impact on me. I think it influenced me, as a human being, and as I go through my life. I think that the experiences I had from wrestling and the relationships and the friendships are such that I constantly think about that. And I think to have the ability to support that and to help our country achieve the objectives of having our young people stand on the podium in the World Championships, stand on the podium in the Olympics. It's just a very compelling story for me.